Welcome back to another episode of Life After Corporate, my friend. And if you're new to our show, welcome home. This is where you get the best advice, the straight scoop, the real work behind launching an entrepreneurial venture after having a great career in corporate. And today we're continuing our series with community builders. And as you know, communities are hot right now. And if you're not a member of at least 3 or 4 of them, then what are you waiting for? You're missing out on some great connections, great collaborations. And my guest today is Stephanie Cartin. She is the visionary serial entrepreneur, investor, podcast host, and mom who has dedicated her career to champion women founders. She created the Entrepreneurship League. So today we're going to dive into what was the reason behind Entrepreneurship. And welcome to the show, Stephanie Cartin.
Thank you, Deb. I'm so excited to be here with you today and just add as much value as possible to share with your audience and community. I get so excited to be on our members podcast because I just love connecting with our members. That is just my absolute favorite thing to do. So thank you, Deb.
Yeah. So you have the Entreprenista show and Startups and Stilettos. So there's 2 podcasts that come out of Entreprenista. So if you haven't tuned into those, my friends, check them out. And Stephanie, we were talking before we hit record, and I was surprised that you really did have a life after corporate, because I feel like you started Socialfly so young. Like, how could you ever have been in corporate?
I was. Okay. So you want to hear this wild backstory, Deb?
Yeah, I do.
So I feel like everything in my life really goes back to my childhood. Like what I experienced as a child, one thing led to the next and really set the stage for everything that Courtney and I have both accomplished in our careers as entreprenistas. So I'm going to take you back to the very, very early days. So I got my start as an entreprenista first selling Girl Scout cookies. That was literally my first taste of entrepreneurship back then, being a top seller and just that feeling of like, wow, there's a product that people want and need and get excited about, and I can build something doing this. So I got my taste there selling Girl Scout cookies. I then went on as a 7th grader. I started a Beanie Baby resale business. It was a very hot business back then. 12 years old, I wanted to buy a bunk bed and I saw the Beanie Baby craze, and I started buying up and ordering all these Beanie Babies and like finding out when shipments were coming in at stores and having people drive me to pick them up and borrowing money to buy them and then selling them for more. And do you remember those signs at the grocery store, Deb, where you would like pull off a phone number?
Yeah.
I would put up those signs at the grocery store and moms would call me for these Beanie Babies. They'd come to the house and pick them up. They'd write me checks for $35, $50 to a 12-year-old. Like these were the businesses I was starting as a kid. Crazy. So like I always had that in me. Mm-hmm. But I also did musical theater growing up. I loved performing. I loved being on stage. I loved connecting with people, but I was not allowed to go to school for theater. So I needed a plan B. So I ended up going to school for hospitality and business management. And there's a long story we only have 30 minutes for this episode. So
yes,
I'm not sure that whole story.
Get through this.
So I go to school for hospitality and business management and I end up working for Marriott Vacation Club when I first graduated from college. And I absolutely loved that role. Marriott is such an incredible company, an incredible culture. I learned so much about the hospitality industry, sales, marketing, but I always knew inside of me, even in my corporate role, that I wanted to start something one day, but I didn't know what it was. Now, when I was in college, it's when Facebook first started. So I was one of the first users of Facebook. It was only available back then to Ivy League colleges. So we got first access. And I was like, this is going to change everything that I am learning about in college, but I wasn't quite sure how back then, but I always stayed on the forefront. So then when social became, getting bigger and bigger, and then Twitter started and other platforms, I just knew that small business owners needed to be using social media. It was going to change for everyone's business. So I started just helping friends on the side when I was working for, major hospitality companies with their social media strategies, and quickly realized it was not an after work activity. It was an actual business. So Courtney and I ended up partnering initially on the side of our full-time jobs. And after 10 months, we said, all right, if this is going to be a real business, we have to go all in or not do it at all. So we both quit our corporate jobs on the same day. It was May 4th of 2012. Never looked back and grew and scaled our agency business really organically.
Wow. It's such a great story because I've heard you tell it before on stage at the Founders Weekend, and we'll talk about Founders Weekend 2026 because I think people will get excited for that. And yeah, I think when you have it, you have it, but you were aware of it, right? I grew up and I had an entrepreneurial spirit, but it was just a natural state of being, and I was
Hmm.
not aware of it. So it was just kind of how I got curious and went along. So I love your story. And so you started Socialfly. Where did the idea for Entreprenista come from, and how did you start the membership? Because I don't even remember the beginning.
Yeah. So what started to happen was because of the quick growth and success of Socialfly, so many women founders and leaders started emailing and DMing myself and Courtney all the time, wanting to go out to coffee, just wanting to pick our brain and wanting to hear how we were able to do what we did so quickly. And now, Courtney and I are the type of people that like to help absolutely everyone, but we realized very quickly it was physically impossible and not scalable to go out to coffee all day, every day, and actually run our agency business, Socialfly. So we started thinking, how can we help as many women founders as possible, but actually do it at scale?
Mhm.
So our initial aha moment for Entreprenista was like, oh, why don't we start a podcast like this? And we can share incredible stories of women founders and leaders that are growing businesses, not just our story over and over again. That way, when someone reaches out and says, I want to start a fashion company, we can say, go listen to this episode with Michelle Cordero Grant, hear how she grew, scaled, and sold Lively for a lot of money, right? And hear how she did it. And it's not, I don't have that experience growing and scaling a fashion brand, but other people do. So that
Mhm.
was how Entreprenista started. It was our podcast on the side of running the agency back in 2018. Well, what happened, Deb, was we released the first episode and we were pretty early in the women's entrepreneurship podcasting space. So
Yeah, you were.
we released that first episode. It takes off like from that first episode. Our Instagram account is growing, our email list is growing, our listenership is growing. And we're like, people need this content. But this was like a side content project on the side of running the agency. We were focused on growing and scaling Socialfly. Now, a year and a half into the podcast, we all know what happens in March of 2020. The world changes. And now we're getting even more messages from our listeners and followers. We're hearing things like, I lost my job during the pandemic. I want to start a business. Can you help? Or I need to pivot my business. Can you help? And we're like, we need to help everyone. But we're in the middle of the,
Mhm.
craziness of 2020, trying to still grow and scale our agency and ultimately sell the business. So we're navigating this too, but everyone else needs help. And we knew at that point we had to go all in and build Entreprenista because it was so needed. And at that point, Deb, Courtney and I had already scaled the business, right? We
Mhm.
basically scaled me out of the business. I was actually out of the business for like 6 months during my complicated pregnancy journey when I
Mhm.
was in the hospital. And we had a whole leadership team and management team. So Courtney and I worked with our business coach, who with
Yeah.
Leslie Grossman,
Mhm.
and we made a plan. So we were literally in the middle of the pandemic. This was now May of 2020. And we sat with Leslie virtually on Zoom and made a plan for how Courtney and I could divide and conquer, where she would stay focused on growing Socialfly and I would focus on now starting to build out Entreprenista. So that's what we did. We made a whole plan to divide and conquer. We worked with a business coach to help us do that. And then from May of 2020 on forward now, over the past 5 years, we've built Entreprenista into a full media company and our membership community, the Entreprenista League. But I can tell you a lot went on behind the scenes to make it happen. There was no overnight success
There was
here.
no overnight success. So that's what we want to hear, because there are people out here, I'm one of them, who are just starting to build their own communities. And what were some of the sticky parts in the early days? What are some of the hard lessons that you had to learn in order to get to the spot?
So, the first thing is that when you are building something new, there is a really big learning curve if you do not have experience in that specific industry. As an example, Courtney and I were experts at building a marketing agency and an agency business. So we had one leg up on knowing how to build a scalable service. We knew how to market a service. What
Mhm.
I didn't have experience with was how to build a community as an actual business, how to build a media company as an actual business. So I had to dive in and start learning, and I had to invest to do that. And I think, Deb, that is something that I see over and over again, especially with women founders, right? I see like, I don't have the money to do that, or I don't have the budget to do that. But I like to reframe that as, if you do not spend and invest to learn this, how will you actually grow your business to then be able to generate revenue to grow? Like, only build a business if you are willing to take that leap and actually invest in yourself and in your business. And Courtney and I had learned that lesson many, many years ago, right? When we first started Socialfly, we invested from the very beginning in networking groups and organizations, in coaching, and every single thing we invested in paid off because we strategically picked the things we were going to invest in. And one thing, it was like a breadcrumb. One thing led to the next, led to the next, led to the next. We were always investing in the business. We were always investing in education. So I had a leg up knowing how important that was. So when someone introduced me to a coach who could help teach me, how do you build like the tech on the back end with a community? How do you build these landing pages, right? I wasn't doing that at Socialfly. That was not my background. I can build a business, I can sell, I can market, but I don't know all of this tech stuff. So I
Yeah.
invested. We spent a lot of money. We invested a lot of
Yes.
money. We were making $0 at Entreprenista. We were a free podcast. We had to invest our own money to learn in the beginning to even start.
Yeah, and I just want to pause there and emphasize that because it's not said often enough that your return equals how much you're willing to invest, not
Mm.
just your sweat equity, but in getting the expertise, the
Yeah.
right support on your team. And I know that that was a big deal for us. I was lucky that I had an OBM who understands technology. And I said, I know we're migrating our tech stack over to this one platform, and I'm so sorry, I just bought another. But you have to get the platforms that are conducive to that. And I
Yeah.
hired a community manager out of Entreprenista.
Amazing.
Someone,
Yeah.
yeah, Ingrid. So someone who had been there, done that,
Yeah.
and invested in all of those things before the community is profitable.
Yes, absolutely. Courtney and I, we really invested. We poured our own money and, of course, our
Mhm.
time into building Entreprenista because we knew it's bigger than just a business, right? It is a community that makes so much impact. And we know like this is our life's purpose, right? This is what we are meant to be doing. We see when people are able to connect and collaborate, there's so much more opportunity for everyone. So we knew by investing in the beginning that this would grow because it had to, right? But I
Mhm.
didn't know anything. I had to invest to be able to learn. And now I've learned so much that all I want to do is just continue to share and share and share and pay it forward. But it does start with that investment. Look,
Yeah.
are there a lot of things that are available for free or
Mhm.
for not a lot of money? Sure. And you can find those things, like find as many of those things as possible. But there are certain things if you're building a business that you really do have to have the mindset in business. You have to invest to grow. You really
Yeah,
do.
for sure. What were some of what would you say are the top 5 lessons that you learned along the way in building Entreprenista to now more than 2,000 members? I mean, it's such a
Yeah.
vibrant community that, now we're segmenting into subgroups like coaches and
Yes.
consultants and fashion businesses and product businesses.
Okay, so many lessons. I'll start with tech. So, the tech that we started using when we first launched the community, like our community platform, that's not the platform we're using anymore.
Mhm.
When we first started, we were using a platform that was actually free. And about 3 months in, we found out about Circle, which is the platform that we're on right now. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the platform that we need to be on. Like this has everything that we need. But we had literally just launched the community. We were already a couple hundred members. And the lesson there is spend time, do your research on all of the different tools. There's every year, every few months, there's new tools that are coming
Yeah.
out. And a lot of these tools, the only way they can work with each other is to use platforms like Zapier to be able
Mhm.
to zap stuff to each other. And these things are complicated. And if you don't have an OBM or someone who specializes in this and you're trying to figure it out yourself and that's not your area of expertise, bring someone on the team, find a freelancer, find a specialist who can do it. Because if you are spending all of your time doing something that you're not really great at, it can cause a ripple effect and a lot of problems down the line. So do your research on these tech platforms and work with a specialist who can help you. And then there will be times as you grow that the tools that you're using early on are not going to be the tools that you can scale with, because a lot of times when you are first starting, you want to be a little scrappier. You want to use tools that might be lower cost and free. But then, we're at 2,500 members now. Certain tools we were using earlier on, we already had to come off of to be able to use other more advanced platforms. And also just know, next tip, everything takes longer than you think.
So true.
Everything in life and business. So it's like if you have this timeline of, okay, we're going to get this done by X date, like always add buffer room and time to everything that you do, because everything really does take a lot longer. So we then transitioned over to using Circle, and it was, absolutely incredible. But that's even a, project in itself, because
Oh
once you
yeah.
have a community and your community is already in a certain platform, to then migrate and move everyone off, that's a whole marketing campaign internally to your members itself, to then get people to move over. So those are a few tips right there. There's many more. I don't know if you want me to keep sharing all of
Yeah.
them, Deb. You tell me
Well,
if you want me to keep going.
I want to talk about the membership
Yeah.
and how the members, some of the challenges in growing the membership. How many members did you have when you first launched? Was it a small core group? How many people did you start with? And how did you get to critical mass? What were the different stages?
Yeah. So pre-launch, we actually started sharing that we were going to be launching this community. And again, we created the community because so many people were reaching out, sharing that they wanted a
Hmm.
community. If you remember back then in 2020, we were all organically getting on Clubhouse, trying to
Hmm.
connect with each other. Like, how can we build these connections online? We were doing Zoom chats together. So I shared with everyone, we're building this community, get on the list, we're launching soon. And we built up this, hype and excitement. Of course, we had our podcast, we were sharing on there. So then when we launched the community, there was so much excitement and interest right away that the day we launched, I remember it was like, a new member joined, new member joined, new member joined. And it was just so exciting to see. And everyone was so excited to get into the platform and actually start connecting. Within the first year, I believe we were probably around like 300, 350 members
Hmm.
after the first year. And now we are close to 4 years. It'll be 4 years on May 4th. So we
Hmm.
launch everything on May 4th, the anniversary of
I
when
love
we
that.
quit our corporate jobs. And it'll be 4 years. We're already over 2,500 members now.
Yeah.
Now, Deb, you asked about like another learning lesson, right?
Hmm.
Something I wish we did when we first launched that was not on the checklist that I would recommend for everyone to have on your checklist when you're first launching is, when you're building a community, your members, if you're building something incredible that is high value and it's a great offering, your members will be your biggest cheerleaders if they're having a great experience. So have a member referral program that's ready to go and set up from the beginning, because your members are organically going to want to share from the rooftops, and you want to be able to reward them for doing so. Now, I know a lot of our members, they'll share like, we just want to share because we love Entreprenista so much. We don't even care if we get rewarded, but I want to reward our members because, we, by advertising on Facebook and Instagram and events and other things, I would much rather give that to our members so they can use that money to continue to invest in themselves, in their business. So we didn't have that set up from day one. And then going back to tech tools, we did research on tech tools. We were referred to a platform that we used in the beginning, which didn't work, end up working well. The tracking wasn't great. And then we switched to another platform. So again, doing all of that tech research and switching, like all of that stuff takes a lot of time.
It does. And one of the biggest challenges growing community is not overwhelming the community with too much information.
Mm.
What were some of the early lessons learned in organizing the community? So not overwhelming the members with too much information or too many events. How did you find the right balance of member engagement with each other, content, but not too much content, and not overwhelming people with too many events?
Yeah, it was really all test and learn. It was,
Mhm.
in the beginning, it was based on what members were sharing they were looking for. And then based on also like a combination of my intuition combined with what I knew I needed and wanted when I was in our, member shoes, and what was most relevant for them right now. So like that's how we initially created, but then we were always listening. Every year we send out member surveys. When we do our more, curated cohorts and power groups, we're always sharing surveys to gather information of what's important to members. Something that we worked on when Ashley, our director of membership and community, joined the team. Shout out to Ashley. She is incredible. And having an awesome team is
Fantastic person.
also really important to grow and scale a business, because you can't do it all on your own. So having a team is key. Ashley really worked on member experience and onboarding and making sure that members were set up for success. So when a member joins, having an email series that goes to them where it's, sharing content in certain time intervals, making sure that they have the support they need. They know how to reach out to other members. We have in our Circle community platform, we have a room there that goes over the new member onboarding checklist. We do a member orientation every single month, not just a new member orientation, just a general member orientation, because we're always adding new things. And we want all of our members to feel like they can come to these member overview sessions anytime they want to drop in and ask, like, hey, I'm working on, getting featured in my business. I want to do more of that. Like, are there things that I should be looking at doing in Entreprenista? Because we do offer so much, right? We created this community to have everything that founders need at all stages of business. So whether they are looking for, opportunities to get featured, be a speaker, looking to learn how to create a financial model or business plan, they've just left corporate and they want to work with someone like you, Deb, and learn how to actually build a business. We want to be sure all the resources are there and then make it accessible to find where these resources are. And one of your questions was like, how do you actually, continue to build the business as it gets, bigger and like help the members of the community? We're actually doing a whole event about this today for our community. We host these town halls where we share every quarter what's coming and what we're building based on member feedback. Because, another thing in terms of like, learning lessons of building a community, figuring out what pricing models work, what membership models work, what the right price point is. Because at the end of the day, Entreprenista, we're here to support our members, but we have to build a profitable, scalable business in order to be able to offer what we offer for our members. So figuring all of that out, it's been a constant evolution and learning lesson, but by listening to our members and understanding what they need, that's how we've been building.
And I think that's the magic inside of Entreprenista too, is it really is built for people. And I know that when I missed the first Founders Weekend and then I went last year, and I was literally blown away because, the best part of community too is getting together in real life. So when people meet online, then there's this natural tendency to want to meet up in real life. And your members, I know members of Entreprenista spontaneously do member meetups. I've been a part of a couple in New York City, or even if there's another event going on run by another organization, like the Entreprenistas who are there all gather together and we take photos, we send them to you. So it really has taken on a culture of its own. So what are some of the biggest successes that you've seen come out of Entreprenista? Because I've also seen the membership grow from those that were initially in the very, very beginning stages of entrepreneurship to those now who have scaled and exited.
Yeah.
And there's a mix of product founders, service founders. What are some of the biggest success stories that you want to share about community members and what's happened inside of Entreprenista?
So this would be a 3-hour episode for me to share absolutely everything. I literally every day, Deb, I like cry. I cry every day, like happy tears. The text messages I get, the LinkedIn posts I'm tagged in, the emails, everything, because members are constantly sharing with me, Stephanie, I found my best friends in life and in business as part of this, as being part of this community. I found my best friends in life and in business. We are seeing members doubling, tripling, quadrupling their revenue from being in the business. I'll shout out a couple of our members, but it's not a couple. It's like hundreds, even thousands of our members. Like everyone has a story, right? Jess Milanis, she was just starting her podcast production business. 90+% of her clients have come from Entreprenista through members who become clients and then referrals from members. She's built her whole business here. Lauren Berkeson. Lauren, do you know Lauren Berkeson? Have
Yeah,
you guys
Lauren
connected?
was on the show
yes.
few weeks
So
ago.
Lauren and I, we connected on Threads. The week Threads launched, what was that, a year and a half ago now? And she wanted to leave her corporate job to start her legal business. And I encouraged her, I'm like, join the community. You'll get all the resources and support that you need. Lauren, in less than a year in her business, is doing 6 figures in revenue because of the support of the community, referrals, introductions, the resources. Lauren actually joined our community builder power group last year because she was looking at building community as part of her business as well. Like she has been able to just grow and scale her business so quickly. And now someone like Lauren, she's like, all of my best friends are in Entreprenista, connections that I've made. But it's stories like this every single day. Members getting into Target, getting into Walmart, working with members like Michelle. We were just talking about Michelle, I think, before we started recording.
Yeah.
Michelle, she's one of our Entreprenista approved members like you. She's working with so many members to help them learn how to get into retail stores. Like the access that our members get inside the community, it's just like the best. Is why
It's
I literally cry
crazy.
every day.
And you know why I think this conversation is so important right now and why communities are so hot right now is it's hard out there, right? We're recording this in April of 2025. If you're not familiar with what's going on right now, we have a little political uncertainty, financial instability. People are afraid. Sometimes consumers are holding on to cash more tightly these days. But it's in these rooms and in these communities where you get the strategies of what's working for me and what's working for Stephanie and what's working for Michelle and what's working for Lauren. And we get to share that with each other. And so it raises the collective success of everyone in the community. And I was thinking about, I wrote in the newsletter last week, that's almost like a new definition of the circular economy.
Yeah.
You pay me, I'll pay you. And we each learn new skills. We get to make more money based on learning from each other. And, it was a net zero exchange in value, but we paid each other because money is currency and currency needs to move.
Yes.
So those are some of the ways that I think we get through these harder times.
Absolutely. So right now, again, this is April of 2025. There's a lot of challenges with tariffs right now. So our members that have product-based businesses are really struggling because they're trying to navigate what is going to happen, right? How is this impacting their business, the supply chain? One of our Entreprenista approved members, Alice James, she is an expert in this. She is going to be hosting office hours for the community. We're working on building out additional power groups for our product-based businesses that need help right now. So, we have certain groups that we weren't planning to launch till September, but things are happening right now. How can we fast track things to help our community right now get access to the resources that are needed today? That is how we are listening to the community to build and put stuff aside that we were working on that might not be the priority right now because we have to serve our members first and do what everyone needs right now.
Yeah. And I want everyone to pay attention to what Stephanie just said, because this is what's required in this market is you need to offer what's needed now. Regardless of what your business model has been or what your service suite or products have been, now is the time to really dial in. And also, being super tight with your messaging, your marketing. I love all you shared with the member onboarding process, right? Because once someone raises their hand and they click on that membership link and they pay for their membership, then we as community builders have the obligation to ensure that they get value.
Yes.
And so I love that. I'm going to take that back
There you go.
to my community manager. I was like, wow, I think we can tighten up the onboarding process. So that was fantastic. Thank you so much. Anything else that you want to leave our listeners with on the value of community or the biggest lesson that you've learned or what's next for Entreprenista?
Yes. The community you surround yourself with will determine your success in business. And I'll share that again. The community you surround yourself with will determine your success in business. Why? Because the people who you are around are going to be there to be your biggest cheerleaders, to lift you up, to make connections and referrals and partnerships. And when times get tough like this, they're going to be there to help you. And when there's things to celebrate, they're going to be the first people to cheer you on. And that is how you build and grow a scalable, successful business. We all don't know everything, right? Deb, we're experts in a lot of things. We're not experts in everything. Don't come to Stephanie Cartin and say, help me build my financial model. That is not my area of expertise, but you know whose area of expertise that is? I know you are really great at that. Carlin's really great at that. Alyssa, who's going to be leading our business strategy power group, is excellent at that. She's one of our advisors in Entreprenista. Surround yourself with people who can help you in areas that you aren't experts at, and you can help other people in areas where you are an expert. That is how we are all going to build scalable, sustainable, profitable businesses. That
Amen
is
to
what I
that.
want to. Yes, we'll leave everyone with. And then I know you brought up Founders Weekend. So we are planning our next Founders Weekend. We are so excited. So this event next year, it's going to be April 30th to May 3rd, 2026. It is a members only event now. And this is specifically for Entrepreneurship League members who want to come for a whole weekend of connection and collaboration and learn how to build wealth in their business and in their personal life, but also take care of themselves, because if we don't take care of our body and our brain and our being, we can't take care of our business or our
Yeah.
families. We have to take care of ourselves first. So it's a 3-day retreat. It's going to be magical. We are working so hard behind the scenes. So we partner with members of our community to bring this event to life. So we've been working with Entreprenista expert, Kristen Shamak. She is the hotel whisperer. So anyone here who is planning any type of event, do you know Kristen? Have you guys worked together?
I didn't think so.
You guys have to connect. So I love these
Okay.
episodes when we can connect everyone. So anyone who plans any types of events or retreats at hotels, she will essentially help get the best deal, the best hotel rate. And you don't pay her, the hotel ends up paying her. So it is
Fantastic.
like the best thing ever, right? So she worked with us to get us the best rate at the PGA Resort. It's going to be incredible. We're working with our member, Lindsay. She is one of the co-founders of K-Row, an event planning company. So they are our event planners for the event. And we're working on, again, just creating, like you experienced last year, the most magical experience
It
for Founders
was
Weekend.
over the top. It was by far the best entrepreneurial event that I have ever attended. And I've attended a lot because I too have been in business since 2012. So that's saying a lot. It was fantastic. I'm still using the swag. I was doing my hair today, getting ready for the show. And I was like, I got this in the swag at Founders Weekend.
Oh, the Kitsch products? Yep. Shout out to Kitsch. We had her on the podcast too. Yeah. And that's the great thing about an event, right? It brings everyone together to like build these real in-person, real relationships, and it just carries on. And I think, again, just going back to what I said, like the community and the people you surround yourself with, it's not just about, business relationships and things that are transactional. It's about building real connections with each other and caring about each other and checking in with each other. It's not all business. It's the relationships that we're all building together. So special.
Absolutely. And if you can't tell already, Stephanie is only a little bit passionate about Entreprenista League and the community that they've built. We will post a link to join Entreprenista in the show notes. And we may even have a bonus, discount for you.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so look in the show notes, grab that link, and there'll be a discount code for you there just for listening to this podcast. Thank you so much, Stephanie Cartin. It was great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Deb.
And that's it for now for Life After Corporate, my friends. We will see you next week when we bring you another brilliant community strategist to share lessons learned in community building. We'll see you soon.